When we first started discussing unmarketing real estate, the podcast, our whole concept or the whole idea in our head was to bring out more stories from real estate marketing, which help our viewers connect between the evolution that the real estate marketing has gone through and the future that it's moving towards. And if there was ever a guest who could have woven this story in a single interview, it has to be Mr. CJ Mathews, Vice President, Marketing and PR at the Nahar Group. He's our next guest. Join us as he shares very candidly his entire journey in real estate and stories and anecdotes, insightful anecdotes into how the medium of communications between the real estate stakeholders and their customers changed over the course of the last 10-15 years and where the technology is actually taking them. Be back with CJ.
Hi CJ, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi Digvijay. Thank you so much for having us and having me on the show. Looking forward to a nice chat over the next 30 minutes.
Of course. Same here. Yeah, so I want to start off with your journey in real estate. You started in real estate in 2005, and since then you have been in some of the most prestigious real estate organizations, Rajesh Life Spaces, Usher Group, and now at Nahar. So I want to start off with, how did you come about joining real estate, and how has this journey been for you?
Well, it wasn't one of those plotted journeys, where I decided, okay, now I want to jump on the real estate bandwagon. So 2005, a little part of my personal journey at that point was, I just got back to Bombay, to India, in fact, after a break of 3 odd years, and things a lot in the 3 years that I was away. India's shining story had just kicked off, and then there was a lot of positivity in the market. Everybody was doing well, professionally, in their own careers. Companies were talking fantastic numbers in terms of, property growth and stuff like that. And I was looking for an opportunity where I felt that I needed to start at the grassroots level, if I might say that, because I wanted to learn the city as well. I was a little bit of a stranger to the city back in 2005. And so I said I wanted an opportunity to kind of learn what the city is about, learn all the cultures that exist, and and also learn the city even geographically. I didn't know the distance between Borivali to Bandra or Bandra to Thane even very well back in those days. So after going through a whole set of interviews with multiple organizations from multiple industries, I got my first call from Rustomji. So I started off my journey with Rustomji back in 2005. And I had this lovely 2-part interview with the gentleman that is still part of the Rustomji story. And they were looking for, at that point, somebody to join a brand new team called the Customer Relations. As part of that journey, as part of that interview, the person who was taking my interview felt that I could do well with leading the team.
Amazing.
So that's how that I joined, I think, about a couple of days later, and set out to create what was a very unique concept in terms of customer relations. Back then, and set up the people, the processes, the capacities, capabilities of the entire team, the function. Eventually, a year later, we were showing our own set of fantastic numbers for the areas and the responsibility areas that were assigned to us. We were already a team of 5 people, and after taking care of one critical responsibility over 9 months, we then moved into building an avenue for referral business for Rustomji back, and that also went off very well. Like, it was a kind of an untapped area at that point, at least from a organized approach in terms of talking about referral business, getting people to voluntarily bring in their friends, their family, their associates into larger projects, smaller projects that Rustomji had to offer back then. A year later, an interesting conversation happened in the office, which I can't share too much here, and I was asked to start leading marketing. This was in 2006, if memory serves me right. And since then, back. So of the 17 years, 18 years that I've been in the industry, I've spent 17 years taking care of marketing functions. It has been a fantastic journey being part of real estate.
Yeah.
And with both the organizations and the leaders that have helped me through this entire journey. So that's how I joined real estate. I mean, it was long story short, it was a little bit of a fluke.
No, to be honest, this is one of the most amazing answers that I've heard of this for this particular question. It sounds very serendipitous of how you joined real estate and ended up in marketing. Now you have been in this the marketing let's say the paradigm for real estate for 17-18 years as you pointed out. How have you seen this landscape change more so in the past decade?
Marketing, let's just say, I think back in 2005, 2006, marketing was largely called just advertising. And today the kind of academic definition that we would give to advertising versus a larger scope or larger ecosystem that comes under the word marketing. Real estate was just waking up to a lot of new theoretical theories of what advertising could mean, and people were starting paying attention to what marketing as a larger function, creation of that ecosystem, pulling in resources and people and expertise. That brink of change, that brink of revolution was just happening between 2005 and 2000. Obviously, this is just an opinion that my own exposure created this kind of opinion back then. So in the typical definition of advertising, those days it was largely, memory serves right again, print advertising. Whatever broadsheets existed at that point of time. Obviously, the largest English newspaper was taking the largest share of voice from real estate in terms of advertising. Two new dailies were introduced into the market. I think it was in 2005. And so suddenly there was an interesting mix or an interesting dynamic in terms of being able to do different types of readers, across the landscape of potential customers, right? Whether it was the largest English daily at that point of time and its set of loyal subscribers, two new dailies brought in a whole new set of readers. And as each of these companies started, competing with each other, we could as advertisers suddenly see that there are unique readers to each daily, and it made sense to be able to communicate to them kind of exclusively. From there, a lot of it is like documented history in terms of
True.
I think from print, the next thing that was pretty large in terms of marketing rupees was outdoor. Flourished for a few years. The .com or the internet phase, where the first move for a lot of real estate developers was just setting up their own website. I think came about 2008, 2009. I think that's when you suddenly saw a much larger number of developers, posting their own presence on the World Wide Web by publishing their own websites and corporate websites. So once everybody's eyes open to the internet, what that could do for us locally and across the continent, because we've got multiple NRI hubs across Asia to start with, and then finally what it can do for you globally. I think a lot changed between the years of 2008 and 2010 for real estate. Those particular years also saw a kind of the famous recession, subprime recession that 2007, 2008. That also gave a spurt for everybody. I think a lot of my counterparts, a lot of promoters who led the sales and marketing function to look out for additional avenues to be able to reach their target of audiences. Right? by 2010, we were looking at what? We were looking at print, outdoor, radio. Started collecting money from real estate developers, so to speak. Giving plentiful opportunities. Television jumped in, and then everything that suddenly the internet opened up its own kind of several gates, several doors and windows. So people started off for SMS marketing, email marketing, and those things started getting a lot of popularity. So everybody was, media companies, real estate companies, media buying agencies, everybody was, and obviously creative partners to this entire ecosystem, all the creative agencies. All of these guys were sitting down and working together to say things differently, to say things more concisely to probably individual target audiences, and to use as many of the available opportunities to say that. I think post 2010 is the last decade, 2010 to 2020, inclusive of all of the difficult scenarios that the entire industry has faced, whether it is nationally, globally, etc., etc. The biggest evolution today is obviously digital, right? And there was a point in time where 50%, 60% of the annual marketing budget or the project's budget for lead generation was devoted to print. Today, I think it's safe to assume that there is a larger number of players who are saying, I'm putting 40% of my spend on digital. And I think it's safe to say today that digital rules the roost.
So yes, so in the time that as you mentioned in your response for the last question, that so many times evolution has happened and a new medium of interacting with the customers has come out, right? So in this long journey that you have been doing the marketing for the real estate, could you point out some of the most impressive campaigns which really changed the way real estate interacted with its customers?
Okay, I think so. A dichotomy that I need to establish right at the beginning is that largely all of marketing that has evolved over the last decade or so can be broken into two parts. Real estate firms that have spent money on their brand.
Yeah.
And the second part being real estate firms that have spent money on the project.
Yeah.
Right? So there was, I think, a good part between 2010 to 2015, if I remember my history correctly, where a large number of brands were putting money behind their brands. Whether it was putting money behind equestrian events at Mahalakshmi Racecourse, to branding events at some of the fanciest 5-star hospitality properties across this city, across India for that matter. And putting money into world events like TEDx talks. You saw a lot of money being put into where people wanted their brand to reach, right? An ideology or a name that they wanted the consumer of today to recognize them for. Or even for some brands to be able to spend money with, let's say, a potentially younger set of the consumer who may in the next 3 to 7 years end up coming to a place where they want to transact in real estate. So, you leave a message when they're young and then eventually you establish some kind of relatability with that kind of a younger subset of consumers, keep in touch with them for multiple reasons. And then when they're ready to kind of make their first, real estate purchase or investment, they kind of think of you first, right? So I really don't want to take brand names at this point of time, but for all the brands that may end up seeing this video or listening to this podcast, they'll probably recognize themselves from some of the examples I gave a little earlier. Right? In terms of project marketing, I think the biggest evolution that I have seen in the last decade and a half is people or marketers, advertisers, not talking about just the 4 walls of your home, right? So the number one signal is we were reacting to our customers. What our customers wanted. We were having a project today. I was selling X, Y, Z inventory. I was creating something for the customer today. While I was interacting with that customer, I realized that they wanted something else also. So my next project, I was evolving my product. So I was kind of being reactive as a developer. I was being reactive to my customers with the product that I had today, and then I started building something for tomorrow. So consumer behavior today, or customer preferences, like we used to call them earlier. So today, consumer behavior ends up influencing a lot of the marketing and advertising. And so you see advertising that has evolved from saying, talk about very specific features within just your home to whatever is outside of your home to what inside your single building project or your multi-building project or your township or your gate. We're talking about life, quality of life. That is the single biggest evolution of product advertising and product marketing. And I think it's going to evolve further. There might be people who understand today that, our consumers who eventually transact with us in real estate are getting heavily influenced by their own interest in brands in other industries. Whether it is tech brands or with FMCG brands, whether it's aspirational brands, their interactions with all of those brands, a lot of them international and a few of them Indian, they're bringing those experiences back into real estate and saying, listen, I kind of want this. I kind of expect this. So the other thing that's happened in product marketing is your customer experience that has improved dramatically at the actual project site offices. I've seen some remarkable plans and some remarkable turnaround in execution of what developers want to provide their customers at a project site office or a sales office. And that's also evolving. Thanks to VR and AR, there's a lot of things that have changed, especially since 2019 and what 2020 and 2021 taught us. That AR and VR has picked up dramatically. I think we should see a little bit of a boom, even though we are behind in terms of the technological revolution. We're a little bit behind. But we should see a boom in the next, it's already ongoing, so to speak, in terms of people putting money. I think more technological revolution should be expected.
And I think I should make you the host of One Marketing, because this is the insight that we wanted to bring out. How technology is changing the landscape in a way, as you correctly pointed out. You started off with dividing into two parts as to how the project is to be promoted and how the brand is to be promoted. And that's exactly the kind of awareness that we want to bring out through these talks as to where the marketing is going in future and how technologies are impacting. So the next question that I want to come to is data analytics. Right. So data analytics, you might have seen it yourself, heading or leading the marketing strategies and the marketing teams for such a long time, how real estate is warming up to the idea of data more and more. Right. So in today's day and time, in your role at Nahar, how are you? What are the three most important data metrics for you, and how you're integrating, let's say, data analytics as a part of your value chain?
Okay. At the onset, I like to admit that, it's 2022 and the kind of theoretical knowledge I should have on big data analytics or data analytics, I don't have. I hope to upgrade myself because it is the need of the hour. It has been happening in its own way over the years. Sales and marketing heads put their heads together and say, okay, this is the bunch of customers that came. This is the bunch of leads that came. This is what we know about our leads. This is what we know about our customers. And so we've been doing, in a kind of semi-professional manner for a large part without the help of any specific tools that take care of data analytics or help you drive this kind of analytics from the data that you're putting in the system. Having said that, I think three things that I could consider as the top priority today is one is what part of their journey did they consider my product, right? My first priority or my second priority, third priority, Was I okay? Forget the word priority, right? In terms of just in terms of how did you get your information organically? Am I project number 5? Am I project number 9? Was I project number 3? And I just want to understand in terms of your search journey, where did you get to know about Nahar, or where what helped you kind of out? So part B of that question is, what in our community helped you say that, okay, I want to learn more about this project of Nahar, right? So like priority 1 and priority 2 to form the internal analytics. Priority number 3, I think, and most typically at this point, is keeping an eye on how the number of customers that are comfortable talking about their budgets. The reason for that is to and if you keep an eye on that across months and years, you should be able to see, whatever your data shows you in terms of how much is that budget actually evolving across the number of customers you see, and are your products today and both tomorrow in line with that growing pattern or stagnant pattern of people's budgets or consumers' budgets? Because you can build real estate in Bombay enjoys significant amount of demand, but there was always this confidence and maybe even overconfidence that we can build anything and it'll sell. That has not been the case for the last 7 years. It's changed from seller's market to buyer's market, right? And now you have to be sure that what you're building in terms of what covers into those 4 walls, especially with regards to residential real estate, makes perfect value propositional sense to because you want to enjoy good sales velocity, right? As a developer of a product, you have obligations and commitments to maintain a good sales velocity, and you can only one of the most powerful strengths you can imbibe to make sure that you have a good sales velocity is to make sure that your product is just positioned right. And so understanding, and probably made it sound simpler than it is by saying keeping an eye on budget. There's obviously a series of questions after that. But these are the top 2-3 things that I look at, that I want to keep looking at, short to mid term in terms of data analytics, and that I think will help us in bettering our numbers in terms of lead generation.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. In fact, I want to switch to from here. I want to switch to something that you touched upon earlier in your response for the marketing landscape change, the role of technology. You did share your insights about VR, AR, and how they impacted during the post-COVID phase when there was a lockdown and people were not able to do physical site visits. Now, I want to touch upon the other, let's say, deep technologies which have come into real estate quite a bit, or at least are in the popular, let's say, know-how these days. For example, I want to start off with artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence, as we already know, the marketing platforms deploy for us when we are doing the marketing. But in terms of other aspects, where have you seen, or where do you see it bringing a much bigger impact? And when do you see it becoming, let's say, much more mainstream?
Okay, so artificial intelligence as a phenomena on its own, I think we should see it go mainstream for multiple facets of real estate, not just the sales marketing, right? Because technology it has to be imbibed across the length and width of a company. You need to deploy the best technology. You need to deploy good technology with regards to procurement, with regards to maintaining your finance and accounts department. So it has to go across the board. Now, I think in terms of sales and marketing, in terms of how we empower ourselves in a couple of facets, right? How do we empower ourselves to predict what our customer needs, wants, is going to ask? Artificial intelligence play a role there to be able to help us prepare better for those answers, to be more timely with those answers or the content pieces that we deliver to the customers. So in the sales and marketing bit, I think a conservative guess for artificial intelligence to go mainstream is about 2 years.
Okay.
I think for the rest of the departments across a real estate developer, I think a window of 5 years.
Okay.
So that, artificial intelligence is helping the whole company, the whole company and all its departments. Because at the end of the day, 10 departments, 30 departments, in terms of how you've organized your company, all of them are facilitating pretty much one thing: make a space for a potential customer, right? Commercial, healthcare, whatever it is. So everybody is working towards that one end goal. So it would seem kind of lopsided to have just the sales and marketing function working on artificial intelligence and nobody else, trying to take advantage of that technology that is.
True.
So I think for a sales marketing perspective, 2 years to see a lot more adaptation of artificial intelligence in terms of inter-department or business to client, business to consumer relationships, etc. Across the company, maybe 5 years.
Okay. This is quite interesting because 2 to 5 years, quite honestly, is not a very long time scale, right? It's supposed to have an impact very, very soon, which is totally amazing. Exactly. So from artificial intelligence, I want to shift to one of the more, let's say, non-tangible technology, which is still being explored to a larger extent, called blockchain, right? So smart contracts, we have seen some of our state governments engaging with respect to smart contracts. What's your view on it, and how do you see it? Do you see it becoming a reality in real estate, or what's your view on it?
Yeah, I think almost any technological revolution today, whether you talk about smart contracts and everything else that, or let's say a more popular way of calling that is the metaverse. Everybody's metaverse.
Exactly.
People are dabbling in cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens and whatnot. So every technology that, whether it starts B2B and then goes B2C or vice versa, eventually has a rub off on every walk of the line, right? It's kind of rhetoric to say that, but I'm going to just say that. So smart contracts, I think, I'm kind of sure will play a role in about 3-4 years in terms of adaptation. Right? But I think it will play a role in, especially for people looking to buy real estate in remote locations. I think that will probably be the first adaptation of smart contracts for real estate. NRI trying to buy real estate in his hometown, maybe a little town or a tier 3 city somewhere deep in India, or it could be in a metro. That could be one of the first adaptations of smart contract. Helping customers who are living remotely away from the actual real estate offering, making sure that they're confident about their purchase.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot. Sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to say it makes a lot of sense in terms of legal ownership, and those kind of things are the benchmark which these technologies are setting up. It makes a lot of sense, the use case that you have mentioned.
And I think the interesting thing, the most unique thing rather of smart contracts, and at least what I have learned about it, is that contract exists in multiple nodes. Right? So it's not like a paper-based document. Today, if I unfortunately had a fire at my home or a robbery at my home, and somebody went into my little home and picked up all of my papers, I'm lost. But a smart contract, I can always kind of retrace it and multiple copies. And because it exists in so many nodes, it's a certified true copy, is like how we try to say about paperwork these days. So I think that's probably going to be one of the first adaptations. And I also have this thing that this is going to be one of those technological revolutions that our customer will ask of us before we provide it. It's in its own way, it's a little exciting to be able to be pushed by a customer to do something. But I think that might happen. It's possible.
Amazing. So I want to take a slight detour from the technology talk to channel partners or brokers, right? So one of the questions that we pose to every guest is on brokers as to how important they are to the real estate ecosystem in your organizations or in general. And what do you think of the position of startups such as No Broker, which, to be honest, publicly have aligned themselves as to be standing opposite or against the broker community? Privately, what they say is not something that we are aware of. But what do you think of their position?
Okay, to answer part one of the question, especially in Bombay, our friends in the channel partner community will have been, has been, is currently, and will continue to be a very, very significant part of the real estate transaction. And this cuts across asset classes, it cuts across primary and secondary markets, it cuts across land deals, it cuts across a lot of things, right? I think whether you look at developer or you look at different stakeholders that doing business through a channel partner or prefer to doing business through a channel partner, it's the investment of trust. You have another human being other than the seller to kind of place your trust in. He is kind of reaffirming your purchase decision. He is reaffirming the knowledge you're trying to imbibe for the type of transaction you're doing. I mean, the thumb rule, or not thumb rule, rather, a given statistic of Bombay real estate transactions, actual sales, especially in the primary market, is that I think 80-85% of developers can confidently say that anything between 60%, about 60% of their transactions eventually gets closed because the channel partner fraternity, right? But the most important evolution that I want to give kudos to the channel partner fraternity, number two actually. Number one is the fact that a lot of them are organizing themselves. They're between RERA and their own initiative, they're organizing themselves, they're formalizing themselves, they're making sure that they have all the paperwork in place to safeguard their legal rights and in fact also their legal identity, right? And the second part is this growing number of channel partner firms and individuals who are investing in technology. I think that is a very, very reassuring sign. There are times where developers and CPs end up having a little bit of a debate on an argument in terms of IPs, but that's okay. It's part of the growing process. It's part of the evolution that we're all going through. I mean, there's a lot of things that as developers and channel partners we're learning together. But these are two things that I really want to give kudos to the channel partner community. And for people who see, there is unfortunately, across all of these asset classes and types of transactions that go, there are some very, very difficult stories where stakeholders of a particular transaction have taken advantage or being disruptive or being, or maybe even engaged in illegal kind of transactions. Now, because of that, there is no particular group of stakeholders that does not have, some amount of negative PR around them. It's like how back in the 80s, all the developers would look like the villain in a Bollywood. Every Bollywood movie had a villain that was a builder, right? So it kind of stems from that, whether it was pop culture or otherwise. There is no stakeholder in our ecosystem that is devoid of negative PR. Having said that, there are going to be people who say that, okay, let's take this one point and see if we can create a business around that point, which is, the .com that you mentioned. I can't say much for their business and how well they're doing. But see, it's an opportunity, right? There is going to be opportunities which may be good for me and for you, but it may not work for somebody else. It might be a conflict of interest. It might be an ethical debate. It's every business has that. Every
True.
business has
Yeah.
organization of building spaces and developing real estate also has its ethical issues and he's stepping on my toes, I'm stepping on your toes, all that kind of conflict of interest and
Yeah.
happen. So I can't speak for one particular firm who said that, okay, I want to do business in a certain manner.
Yeah.
If he sees an opportunity and he is trying to create a profit for himself from that,
Okay.
all the best to them. That's the only thing I can say. But ethically speaking, in the truest sense of ethics, I don't see a grave problem with what one operator is doing. It's not like that particular opportunity is kind of flourishing.
True.
And as future entrepreneurs, to anybody who might be watching this, as long as you're clear in your head and your heart about the ethics of your business and the kind of transaction you want to run, go for it.
Amazing.